SSPA Task Force meeting number 4, Tuesday, October the 13th, 2021.
April.
It's not October.
It's not
He said October.
That's my birthday month. I'm hoping, I'm wishing for my birthday. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Take 2. April 13th, 2021. And for those that may be joining this call for the first time, I am Task Force Co-Chair Walter Clark and also a Planning Commissioner, joined by Co-Chair and Planning Commissioner Mr. Tim Sargent. And to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and emergency ordinance, the Mount Vernon District SSPA Task Force needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It is a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the task force is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members and participating, and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each task force member participating in this meeting to state your name and location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention and ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. So, roll call. Mr. Tim Sargent.
Commissioner Sargent is here from his home in the Mount Vernon district.
Ms. Hillary Clausen.
This is Hillary Clausen from my home on Mason Neck.
Ms. Catherine Ward.
Catherine Ward at her home on Gladstone Place.
Ms. Gretchen Wallace. Gretchen Wallace.
Gretchen is probably not here. She had a family emergency. It was down south, so I'm not sure if she's going to get back in time.
Thank you. Yes, she did email us that. Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. David Levine.
Hi, this is Dave Levine from my home in Alexandria, Virginia.
And Ms. Holly Doherty also emailed. She has family matters she's taking care of, so she will not join us tonight. Mr. Evan Kaufman.
This is Evan Kaufman calling in from Richmond, Virginia.
Ms. Mary Payton. Ms. Queenie Cox. Queenie, we can see you.
At that mute. Takes me a while to find the buttons to unmute. Queenie Cox in Gum Springs.
Ms. Ellen Young.
Ellen Young at home in Bellevue.
Mr. Hamid Munir. Mr. Lynn Pasco.
Lynn Pasco at home in Montebello.
Ms. Tracy Wood.
Miss Tracy Wood in Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay, now I will pass the virtual gavel over to our co-chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the Mount Vernon District SSPA Task Force. I so move.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second. This is Ellen.
Second by Ellen Young. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Second, having established each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures and the fact that we are meeting electronically and what type of electronic communication is being used and how we have arranged for the public to access this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the task force to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such, FOIA's user procedures, which requires the physical assembly of the task force and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the task force may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access the meeting by registering through the meeting's link on the Track a Plan Amendment page of the SSPA website at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/planning-development/plan-amendment, or by calling 1-844-621-3956 TTY 711 and entering access code 129-013-4661. It is so moved.
Motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
Second, it's Lynn Pasco.
Thank you, Lynn. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Finally, it is next required that all matters addressed on today's agenda must be addressed the emergency itself and necessary for continuity in the Fairfax County government and or statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the Mount Vernon District SSPA Task Force lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. I so move.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second it, Tracy Wood, second.
Okay, Tracy, thank you. Motion has been seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, the motion has passed.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sergeant.
You are
Now,
welcome, sir.
I would ask Aaron or Graham if we've had any public comments to come in.
No.
None that we've received, no.
Okay, great. All right, and no public comments to be addressed at this time. So we'll now continue to move on into our meeting, and we'll ask if staff is able to give us the Webex instructions before we get on with the agenda.
Certainly. So for panelists, if you wish to speak, down in the right bottom corner of your screen, you should see a hand symbol. That's the raise your hand symbol, and click that, and that notifies us that you want to speak. And then, or you can just say, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say my joke of the night. And for attendees from the public, you should dial *3 on your phone if you're watching the meeting by phone, attending the meeting by phone, to raise your hand from that way. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much. And it looks as if we have Mary Payton has joined us. Mary, are you there?
I'm here in Bucknell Manor and Mount Vernon.
All right, thank you very much. I think we can hear you very clear. All right, so first item on the agenda for tonight is that we have a deferral on 2806 Hopkins Lane. We would like to defer that to April 27th to the carryover meeting. And it's our understanding that the nominator and the staff are going to develop some alternate site layouts in order to address the tree save and access issues. These will need to be distributed to the task force in advance of April 27th meeting, as well as some updated plan text. So tonight there'll be no meeting or vote on Hopkins Lane. Are there any comments to that? Yes, Mary. I see you hand. Yes, Mary.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed last week's meeting, but I did review it and the materials. And my concerns were the flooding issue and the access issue. And I don't quite understand the flooding. I've heard two stories. One is that developing the area would mitigate the flooding. but I assume that it would be at some great expense that would be paid by who, the developer. And the other is that it's better to leave it in a natural state to mitigate the flooding. I have been over there and seen some very substantial water flow coming out of that area, and have some concerns about developing it because of the very large amount of the flow of water coming through there. So that was just my question. It seems like it would be more expensive to develop if the developer has to put in a lot of flood mitigation. Is that correct?
All right. We ask staff if they are able to address that for us.
Yeah. Hi, Mary. This is Graham Owen with planning. To your question about flooding in particular, that's one of the things that when we were reviewing this plan amendment with the various agencies that get involved in stormwater planning, we did notice this. We'd also heard from them that there have been historically some complaints regarding flooding in this area, because it is, especially when you get into the cul-de-sacs on Preston Avenue and East Lee Avenue, which are in the Memorial Heights neighborhood, that there are some low points. So one of the things that the stormwater planning division commented on was that despite the flooding and perhaps the need for some sort of mitigation, that if the site is going to be developed, that they would actually prefer that a good portion of the site be retained in its natural state, or perhaps additional plantings be added to it, essentially to preserve the forested condition, which acts like a sponge in a lot of cases and allows for stormwater to infiltrate on the site. So they didn't indicate that there would be no need for engineered stormwater improvements in the area with development. I think that there's a recognition that would likely need to happen. I think that the question will be what will be necessary and where would it be located if the goal is to preserve as much of the tree canopy as possible. So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get into that level of engineering and kind of detailed analysis at the comprehensive planning stage, but I think that if there is interest in looking at a development option on the site as a part of this task force process, we would need to have some guidance in the comprehensive planning language with regards to the kind of the overarching policies that we would want to see implemented as a part of this. And that could be the retention, for example, of good forested conditions where possible. It could be, if there is a development option, the need to integrate stormwater management in other portions of the site. So there's food for thought there, but it's definitely been a big part of the conversation that we've had both with the task force and with staff.
Okay, thank you, Graham.
Hi, this is Catherine. Do you mind if I speak
Yes,
up?
ma'am, please.
I want to first of all thank Sherry from the land use attorney for Verizon for reaching back out to me after she reached out to Verizon, referenced the conversation of last week about Verizon putting this land in the conservation easement and then selling off the tax credit so they could get some money for it. She has indicated, and Sherry, please pipe up if I misspeak, that they are not interested, that they are a public company and public companies don't do that sort of thing because they have responsibilities to their shareholders, blah, blah, blah. I'm very sorry. I shared with Sherry. I thought that was a little bit of BS, so to speak. And I requested, and I would like this group to request again that at a minimum, the Verizon people should at least have the conversation with Northern Virginia Conservation Trust so they can actually comprehend how much money they could get by selling the tax credits. I know Sherry can't guarantee that, but I did request it, and I'm hoping that staff will encourage Verizon to do the honorable thing and at least have a conversation so they understand tax credit cha-ching, cha-ching, change in their piggy bank. And the other comment I will make goes along with Mary Payton's comment about the flooding. As we know, the county has got massive flooding problems with infill development, and they're working on what do they do? Oh my God. And the Mount Vernon Council has set up a special committee to look into stormwater flooding and runoff and things of that sort that's been created by infill development. because it's a big thing in the Mount Vernon district, but it is really countywide.
Okay,
Excuse me, Walter. This is
thank you,
Megan.
Catherine. Who is Megan?
Walter?
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
yes.
Sorry, may I just respond to Catherine's statement, just because she had suggested something about staff encouraging Sherry to pursue the question with Verizon. I think just one thing we should be aware of is that, you know, the board has directed us to look at residential development on the site. It's not to look at a preservation of open space per se. So we certainly can continue to talk with Sherry and ask that she be responsive to the task force question. You know, and that can be something that we will be talking about. But, you know, we have a question in front of us about residential development on the site, and we do need to make a recommendation whether to support the higher density or not, you know, as part of the deferral. And as we look to set up an agenda for the meeting at the end of the month. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Anyone? Oh, Sherry has a comment. Yes, Sherry.
Yeah, I'll just say, Catherine, I appreciate all your comments and pursuing what you feel might be best for the site. I think that's what we all are doing with this SSPA process. So I'll always be happy to entertain any conversations with Catherine or staff about what could be best. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no.
So Walter, could I just, just to get back to what Megan said. So Megan, just to understand that, you're saying the question before the task force is about the higher density on the site, not about preserving it as open space, or is that the point that you're making?
Right. I mean, the plan has a recommendation for residential development.
Right.
So, you know, assuming that as our baseline, we would be looking at, you know, recommending whether or not that plan and baseline recommendation of residential should be increased to look at the higher, you know, a higher density 5 to 8, or, you know, or somewhere in between, because we have that flexibility. But that is really the question for the task force. And, you know, quite frankly, if the decision and the feeling of the task force is that they don't want to pursue the higher density because they want Verizon to do something else with the property, you know, that's certainly, you know, influential maybe in the recommendation, but it's not necessarily an alternative that we can fit into this particular plan amendment. We'd have to, and if we did, I would just say I think the clearest route is to talk with the Board of Supervisors to see if they can amend the authorization to look at an alternative for open space. So that's more of a procedural question, but I just wanted to make sure we were all talking the same language with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
So I have a question, Megan. So it's pretty much like a up or down vote on whether or not the task force supports the recommendation for increased density, and that we can put in the report the alternative that that Catherine raised for open space or whatever. Is that right? So it's just is that right? Just up or down for high density or not?
Right. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by up or down. I mean, we can establish conditions in the plan about tree preservation or about stormwater management or any of the other issues that you all have talked about that aren't clearly so just up or down. We could also look at some as the procedures for this process include, we can look at lowering the density to some middle ground, if you will, that is in between where the base plan is and where the development proposal is. That's also an alternative. So there are, it's a little bit of a, I would say it's not as clearly up or down because there are some different options. But I will say that, you know, if we're pursuing if the task force is taking up or would like to take a position after discussion at the next meeting about preserving the area as open space, I think that's something that we would want to talk to the supervisor about and then perhaps bring back to the board so that so that they could amend the authorization to include that, because that option was not clearly part of the directive that we were given as staff or as a task force. And I think it's important for us to make sure that, you know, when we are reviewing these plan amendments, we're making sure that any information we put out there about the amendment, what we're looking at, what we're considering is really, it's clear to the public, and it's clear, you know, well represented on our website and our advertising to say that there's this other option that we're considering. So I think that's where we just need to, I think that's what's important for us to go back and to talk to the board about amending the authorization so that anything that's going out about this will say, you know, there may be another path forward in terms of land uses on this site that the task force and that staff are looking at.
Okay, so my last question then, you mentioned about putting in conditions for preservation. Would that be a part of the task force recommendation, or is that a separate path?
That would be part of the task force recommendation. You know, to give the example for this evening for 2550, you know, the question on the table was really to look at the change in land use and the guidance in the plan about the 50-50 split residential to non-residential land uses within the 2550 Huntington. And in the staff recommendation, many of the conditions or additional recommendations that are kind of paired with the change in land use are added into that staff recommendation that talk about having the non-residential uses on the first and second floor, that talk about the open space and the park space and recreational space. So I would say that all of those are, you know, additional recommendations that are associated with the you know, question about the change in land use. So I think the conditions are certainly something that you all can attach to whatever recommendation you make regarding that amendment and regarding the one tonight as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Megan. All right, so I see no other hands raised. We will move on to the next item on the agenda. The preliminary staff recommendation and task force recommendation and our vote on 2550 Huntington Avenue. So if we could have the staff preliminary recommendation, please.
Oh, and this is Megan again. Aaron will be presenting the recommendation this evening, but I did want to just say a couple, take a moment to talk about and to introduce Aaron and the recommendation this evening, because as we're closing on this amendment, I wanted to both express my appreciation for the work that the task force has done to date and the commitment that you all have shown for this over the, you would say the last weeks, but really it's been, you know, the last 6 months as we move through screening and all of the, you know, the civil discourse that we've had to date. And I also wanted to just make sure we're all on the same page and that we're clear on what staff's role on the process. And that's to represent the board's policy as they're currently expressed in the comprehensive plan right now. And we use this as we look at, you know, what the benefits might be and what are the impacts to the potential plan amendment so that we can formulate a recommendation on whether or not the plan amendment should be adopted. You know, it's a technical analysis from our perspective, and it's not one that's based on personal opinion. It's not academic. It's really based on that board policy. So, you know, that is something that is, you know, is important for us to make sure we all kind of, you know, we all are working from. And also that, you know, we work towards consensus and agreements, and that's the goal. But disagreements are certainly possible. It is natural when you have different stakeholders coming at it from different perspectives. You know, we've had a good amount of agreement so far, and you know, certainly we are expecting, you know, that there may be disagreements tonight, and that's okay. But we do, and as Aaron is talking through the recommendation and talking through, you know, and you know, giving some background on you know, how we've looked at the issues and how they're represented within this preliminary staff recommendation. You know, I really wanted to just say that I look forward to sort of the continued respectful dialogue, and that, you know, and we can all work sort of together on this to find, you know, where the mutual agreements lie, and make sure that, you know, even if we cannot agree with each other, that we at least understand where we're coming from. So thank you for that, and I'll give it over to Aaron.
Thanks, Megan. And Aaron,
Okay, thank
the
you,
floor
Megan.
is yours, sir.
Let me just share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see that?
Aaron, can you make the screen larger?
Yes.
The document. There you go. Almost.
Hold on one second here.
There's one busy arrow.
I'm having a little trouble here. Hold on. Okay, one second.
Aaron, do you want me to share my screen and you can just talk through it?
How's that? No,
It's the same.
It's the same. All right. Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great.
Sure. Can you just make me presenter?
Well, you know what? There's a Zoom button on the left side, and I clicked on it and it made the document larger. So it might be an individual thing.
Aaron, if you could, can you switch my role over to presenter?
Yep.
All right, can you see that?
Yep.
Great. All right, Aaron, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Graham. All right, so for those of you who are not familiar with the format or how the comprehensive plan is written and the formatting that we show when we're proposing an amendment to the comprehensive plan, let me just walk you through that. So when we're making an amendment, we can either leave current plan text as it is, that's plan text that we are proposing not to touch at all, and the format of that text is just plain text like you're seeing for most of this right here on the page. When we are proposing to delete current text, we format that as strike through, and when we're proposing to add new plan text that is formatted as underlined text. And so what you see here is we begin here with the section of the plan that we're looking at, exactly where the text is. And the first thing, so the first part of this you'll see is we're leaving the underlying plan recommendation intact here for the mixed use at the intensity that it's at between 2.0 and 3.0 FIR. And then there are a number of conditions, current plan conditions, that we're not proposing to change at all. So that's the first part of this. And then if you can scroll down, Graham. So now we come to the preliminary staff recommendation here. And this is for a second option. And again, this is for residential use that could exceed what's in the current plan right now, the 50% limitation, or that the residential use has to be at least 50% of total development of any new development. So we're saying it could exceed that if retail or other community serving uses are provided on the first and second floors of the new building. So we talked about that. Again, the importance that's of the plan policies that are already in place for mixed use at transit station areas. So that's where we're including this. And then again, for the uses on the first and second floor of the building to activate the street and the pedestrian realm. And this is also in conformance with the overall guidance for the transit development area. And so then we give examples of what do we mean by community serving uses. So we're talking about uses that meet the daily needs of residents, such as restaurants, convenience stores, dentists, etc. And then we also are expressing that there's a preference for independent living and or assisted living units to be encouraged to be provided, I should say, in the remainder of the building as part of the residential component. And then the rest of the text here is dealing with some conditions that we're adding to this as well. So first of all, we're recommending that an urban plaza of approximately a quarter acre should be provided at the corner of Huntington Avenue and Metroview Parkway as a placemaking space to serve residents and area workers, and that it should be large enough to accommodate a variety of uses, provide a gathering space, and then also that there should be recreational uses, and amenities for area residents to be provided on site or through coordinated development with adjacent parcels to the west, like we mentioned in our presentation last week or the week before, and that there should be enhancements to the Cameron Run Trail and providing recreational opportunities and open space for area residents in that area along Cameron Run. And any new park spaces should follow the urban parks framework that's in the open space element of the policy plan. So, so that's staff's recommendation. And at this time, the task force can debate the merits of this and decide whether you wish to develop your own recommendation that is different from this, if you wish.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. We will now open it up to the task force for discussion.
Could I start out? I'm sorry, I can't find my hand raising. I apologize, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You know, staff, I just can't help but ask myself why we're spending so much time on going over exactly the same grounds week after week. You all know what we think about it. We've said it twice, loud and clear. We know what you would like on this subject, and so it seems to me that we've just been spending an awfully lot of very valuable time and keeping you guys away from your families and such in here to spin our wheels over the exact same subject. I would have been happy tonight if we'd just gone on to something that you had written that talked about that and talked about sort of some of our, just said in it straight up that the task force doesn't agree with these recommendations and it only wants the stuff on the first floor. And secondly, I don't understand why the recommendation is so offhanded. Says, just as a second option. It seems to me if I were on the board of supervisors, I'd say, well, what do you prefer? And you would answer, well, we clearly prefer the first, but there's these meddlesome people in the area there that think it's a good idea to go ahead and develop it before a decade from now. So I'm sorry, but that's just my preliminary comments. They don't really go anywhere, but we're just talking over the same issues we've been at now. At least this is the third week altogether we've talked about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Excuse
Anyone
me,
else?
Walter,
Yeah.
just to be clear, this is the staff recommendation. The point of tonight is to develop your task force recommendation. So, we provide the preliminary staff recommendation as potentially something to work with for you all to mold into something that you all can support. So if there are pieces of it that y'all want to work with to talk about, to talk about, well, we like this part, we don't like this part, we want to, change or take out this sentence or change it. I think that's the purpose of this evening's discussion, is really to workshop something that you all can support if there is something. I think, of course, based on discussion there is. So if you all want to use this as a basis, that is something that we're offering for you all to do, and craft it into something that works. And we're open, in doing so, we're open to having you all suggest, removing language, adding language, and that's what we really would like to see come out of this, is really having some type of specific discussion on what the task force wants to see in terms of the language and the conditions, and then look at potentially taking a vote on that. So that's what I hear you, Lynn, that we're talking about the same issues, and we opened it up on the first meeting to talk about what are the impacts, and what direction y'all want to take, and then now is the time to really kind of put the rubber where the rubber meets the road, to say, as a task force, we want this type of language in the plan, and we can work with the staff recommendation or not, and then kind of close it out. Would that be accurate, Aaron and Graham? So we're not trying to spin wheels or rehash things. We need to close out, really.
Thank you, Megan. That's very, very helpful. Ellen's hand went up first, and then I'd like to be able to say something, if I might. But Ellen?
Yes.
Yes,
Ellen?
yes. I've got a few concerns about the second option. And, I understand, one view, we have another view. So, that's just the way it is. But, you have, a lot of it is kind of, nebulous. You've got independent assisted living. Are you talking about an independent assisted living building? Or are you saying, well, there should be some of that in there? It's not really, if you're going to have rental apartments, it's really not appropriate for assisted living kind of stuff. You need services and blah, blah. I am concerned about, the park language. It really is limiting, and it could limit what a developer would do, and it actually could stop the development at all. So as Lynn said, maybe we'll get something in 10, 20 years as opposed to now. The recommendation that, this owner work with other parcel owners to create something, that you really can't tell somebody you've got to work with somebody else who isn't interested in working with you. So, that just seems like, again, it's going to stop the development. And I'm wondering, we mentioned this little in our last meeting. You know, I know you want 2 floors of, you know, retail and services. You know, none of us see that happening. But what if you did, you know, first floor is, you know, commercial retail, and the second floor is built as residential, but it also could have, you know, certain, you know, commercial uses. Is that something that staff, you know, could get on board with? I mean, certainly that would be my recommendation. You know, so if there aren't any businesses that want it, you can rent it out, and then, you know, the owner of the building isn't going bankrupt. So, you know, I mean, our point here is to get something built and not have it just sit vacant forever. So that's what I have to say at the moment.
All right, thanks, Ellen. Catherine?
Okay, taking off on what our task is and what Lynn said and what Ellen just said, I would like to make the following proposal, nomination, whatever one wants to do it. Can you scroll up to the first page of this for me, please, sir? Thank you. Okay, this is the old stuff. It's what's in there now. We're pretty sure, and the market study that was done not too long ago on behalf of the county is pretty sure that we're not going to get the 30 FAR and a 165-foot building and a hotel and all this kind of stuff. So I would like to propose that we strike the existing language. It goes away, gone, history, forget it, with the exception of things about LEED certification and all that kind of stuff. Okay, scroll back down to the new language, please, sir.
Catherine, just for clarity, you're talking about taking out the existing option
Taking out,
under the plan?
yeah, taking out parcels, you know, 831, that paragraph there, except we want to definitely have environmental elements and LEED and all that in the new language. That's absolutely critical. And then go down, you know, keep scroll up for me just a little bit, where it says provisions of high, where'd it go? Pedestrian and bicycle systems, that can certainly stay. On-site affordable, affordable and workforce housing, you've already got that in the new language. Restoration of vegetated area, absolutely, that should stay. Connecting to the Cameron Run Park should stay. Integrated pedestrian and bike system, yeah, I'm good with that. Buildings should be designed to accommodate telecommunication antennas. Okay, fine. Scroll down. I'm really just taking out the higher building part. The impact on the park should be mitigated. I have no issue with that. And then the transit-oriented development, I'm not sure exactly what that means. And then if you go down to the new language that you've just put in, all the stuff that's underlined, I believe I agree with Ellen, and I think the proposal should say the option for this property is that we have retail on the first floor, that the second floor be provided with flex space, whether it's commercial or living accommodation, live work kind of stuff. And you know, if you want to list the kinds of things that can go in the entire thing, that's fine. I have an issue, as Ellen says, with the independent living and assisted living. I just don't think that's going to work. I definitely think you should have in there opportunity for affordable housing as portion of it. The urban park, I don't particularly have a problem with it. I don't think it's quite that large. And I believe I remember the owner saying that that would work for them in their design effort. So it's really just get rid of the first part. So it's not even an option anymore, because that ain't going to happen anytime soon. And we go with, let's get this 7 or 8 story building built, get some mom and pop type of retail on the main floor. I guess I would ask a question. I don't know that you can force an owner to have mom and pop type businesses in there, but we certainly would hate to see another, a Starbucks or a Subway and that kind of stuff go in. We would like to see more appropriate, you know, mom and pop, you know, upper end available stuff in there. So does that make sense? Am I blithering? I probably am, but that's what my proposal is. Get rid of the top piece, make this what goes in there. It's not a second option. It is the option. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Catherine. I can't see
And
if someone else.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Megan. Sorry.
Sorry, and not a commentary on the recommendation from Catherine, just more, again, more procedure and something to be aware of. Because there's an approved PCA on the first part, you know, typically we don't opt to take out options that relate to approved zonings, because then if they were to come back in and try to amend that zoning without, you know, without trying to do this option, they would be non-conforming. So it's
Okay.
something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you for that update. Then
Yeah, 'cause-
leave it in there, but make this the, I don't know what kind of word, but a second option, whatever. The fact is, conversations before have been, second floor retail isn't gonna work. We don't want it, at least those of you who weren't here last week, but that was the conversation we all had about it. And that it should be more of a flex space, so you can have choices. If a dentist wants to go in there, great. But if they don't, and it's available for rental, then that's what should happen. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Megan. I believe Mary Payton had her hand raised. Mary, are you there? Hello, Mary.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with the conversation from last week, which I did listen to. I think long-term, having some commercial space is of a local nature is good for the area. I understand the developer doesn't think he can rent it out now, and I don't know how to deal with that in terms of planning. But I know that along the Route 1 area, a lot of local commercial space is being taken out. And I think as much commercial space as we can provide in new development is beneficial for the community. I don't know about the assisted living situation. That's kind of a different thing. And I do support the connection with the parks, and as much active outdoor space or as possible should be developed there.
Great. Thanks, Mary. And if I'm hearing and understanding it, most on the task force that has spoken out is that we all agree with retail on the first floor. It's the second floor that we are having a little bit of heartburn about. And the suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, this is the nominator. I wondered if I might be able to address that suggestion.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. This is Lynn Strobel, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the nominator, and Mr. Steve Bannister is on the line also. And I just wanted a moment to address Ms. Ward's suggestion about flex space, only because we have looked at this in the past for other buildings, and the way that I understand it, it's difficult to make a floor of a building to be either or, to be either commercial or residential, because of building code requirements, and you would have to build, I believe, like a second stair or elevator to serve that space. And I think that's, my understanding, that's very difficult. I think that the nominator is not in favor of the second floor of commercial or retail for all the reasons that we articulated last week regarding the market. And, you know, we even have concerns about that first floor, but we know that that's something that's important that will be done. I know that Mr. Bannister is fully aware that he'll have to subsidize the rent. We fully are aware that you don't want mattress wholesalers or whoever had gone into, the Beacon at Groveton, we understand it's kind of the desire to have mom and pop retail, which I think Mr. Bannister is committed to. But, with regard to this text, the only objection that we really have is it says, and second. If it just said, provided on the first floor of the new building, I don't think that we would have any problem with, the other suggestions that have been made. I'll let Mr. Bannister speak up if he has any concerns, but that's my understanding. So thank you for your time.
Can I just make one comment? When I used the word flex space, I was really, and I probably should have been more specific. I'm really thinking more live workspace. I don't, maybe that makes a difference, but I don't know.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is David. I apologize. I wasn't at the meeting last week or the last meeting, and I didn't participate in the discussions. But I would just, my concern is really that we're losing the affordable and workforce housing in the second option. I don't see it anywhere.
No, we anticipate that. That's in the first part of the discussion, which
Okay.
those items will still apply. So
all right,
we fully anticipate providing workforce housing here.
Okay, good.
Thanks, David.
This is Hillary Clausen. I'd like to make a comment. I'm just wondering why we are so certain that second floor retail would not work.
I'm happy to have Mr. Bannister address that. I know that he owns the building next door, which has not had full occupancy. Office is just not in demand in this area. And I think that that's evident by the fact that the office building that's approved here hasn't been built for 9 years. And there really is no market. And there's plenty of other office opportunities in the development that has already been approved in this area.
But I was going to say, when we're talking retail, to me, that's something different than just office space. Why couldn't we have the equivalent or similar type stores, or obviously different ones, but mom and pop shops on the second floor as well as the first floor?
Second floor retail it doesn't really work. People don't want to go up to a second floor for a retail use. It's just not leasable space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just say something, and staff can answer part of my question, because I was, when I was talking about the second floor being built as residential, but also, you could have an office or, a small business in there or whatever that doesn't require, it's not like retail that requires, that the public see it from the street. I was, going off and things may have changed. But what was done here at Bellevue. Now, of course, we have retail on a couple of buildings on the second floor, but you can see the windows and it's very clear, and there's just, one staircase. But if you indeed need a separate elevator, if there's an office or whatever on the floor, but what we have is it's residential or certain commercial. And if the regulations have changed, then, I didn't know that, but that's what I was suggesting.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Anyone else?
This is Megan again. And I don't mean to open up a can of worms, but I did want to respond to Hillary that from our perspective, there is this is where we agree to disagree. We've looked at instances of second floor uses around the county and believe that they are viable uses. And I think the debate is really about the short term versus the long term, perhaps is a better way of looking at it. Because there are second floor uses that are dental offices, orthodontists, salons, real estate agents. So Hilltop has a mathnasium. So there are uses that will go into the second floor that people will use and will go to. They're just not the ones that are, traditional retail where you have the pass by travelers or pedestrians or cars who need that visibility and need that direct access onto the street. So a cafe would never work really on a second floor. but there are other uses that will.
Yeah. And can I just say, you've mentioned salons a couple of times, right around the corner, it's granted it's City of Alexandria, but it's right off Alexandria, is the huge Sola salons like they have at Hilltop. And that's where individual hairstylists, nail, whatever, they rent their individual units. There's no more need for things like that. So, anyway, it's the question is, if we were to move ahead with second floor, it's not going to get built. And so we end up with nothing. And I think that's where we are now. You're looking at the future, but we've got someone who wants to develop something now. And so we either get something or we get nothing.
So let me ask a question. Since this all seems to be tied around the developer's perception that this space is built out to accommodate dentists and whatever the case may be, does it get leased out, then they don't see this as a financial, good financially. And that's not a negative. So my question is there some kind of policy within the county that says, gee, we're going to give you some rebate on your taxes if you can't rent out your spaces?
I'm not aware of that, about the specifics of something like that. I mean, that would have to be built into the financing. And as Lynn has mentioned about the potential, rent agreements that they may have in order to get tenants in there. So, if it may be something where they can negotiate lesser rents to make sure that they have tenants in there. But I can't answer your specific question.
But if we go in, and I'm sorry, but I mean, if we can't finance the building knowing that we'll have a vacant second floor, that's not gonna make sense. And I'm not aware of any such program in the county whereby you're given some sort of abatement for space that's not leased. I'm not sure how that would work.
I was just making my point, Lynn.
Okay. I was going to say,
financing is key. I mean, these developers they don't have the money sitting in their piggy bank. They got to go get it financed.
That's correct.
And if they can't get it financed, this thing isn't going to get built. All the vision that we have all been desperately trying to get since certainly the Mount Vernon Council got involved in 2009 about this stuff is we're just going to get further and further behind. And whether we believe it or not, money's tight out there these days if folks are paying attention. So, I kind of agree with Ellen. It's better to move on and get the most we can negotiate out of Mr. Bannister to bring the best retail onto that ground floor and get some good affordable housing and workforce housing and market rate housing into a 8-story building, and please let's get on with it and make it LEED certified and all that kind of stuff.
If I could just add to that a little bit, I know people have heard this from me until they're tired of it and tired of hearing it. But for heaven's sakes, with all the building that's going on right across the highway there and all the stuff that's going on the other side, I constantly have the feeling that we're being left out because we're saying, oh, no, you can't do this without a second floor that's this way. Oh, no, we got a rule on that. Oh, no, you can't do that. I understand fully well that the county and we want the places to look nice. They should be able to make money. They should be well built. They should be a credit to the community. But somehow we seem to be chasing all of the things which strike me as not doing nothing more than slowing it down. And after a while, we're not a very exciting place to build things, it seems to me.
I hate to jump in here, but just as a matter of procedure, Queenie is the secretary for the meeting and has been charged with taking the votes. She just noted that she would have to leave fairly soon. So I was wondering if there would be somebody that's on the task force who'd be willing to serve as the task force secretary and specifically record the votes. We'll have a video backup and staff can work with you, but we need somebody who can kind of fill in for that role in Queenie's absence.
Graham, I forwarded the task force report form to the chairs and asked if one of them could fill it out. Is that permissible, or does it have to be a volunteer?
It's fine. That's fine if they're okay with it. Yeah.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Sargent. I'm happy to assist.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Commissioner Sargent.
Can I ask, what is the square footage of the second floor and first floor of that building? I'm guessing they're going to be the same.
Did you all hear Evan's question? The square footage of the first floor and the second floor?
I'm sorry, was that a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a question. Whoever can answer that question. What's the square footage on the first floor and the second floor?
I think on the first floor, it's about, hold on just a second. I thought it was about 19,000 square feet, but I could be wrong on that.
Now, in round numbers.
Thank you.
Yes, in round numbers, Walter, this is very rounded, about 12,000 square feet on each floor, plus or minus 1,000 that we're talking about.
12,000.
And I would just add that this is a plan amendment. We don't have a specific proposal that we're looking at, but this is based on, a potential proposal. So it could potentially change,
right,
if the development concept were to be rejiggered. Just please keep that in mind.
But around there's probably not enough room to make it, 40,000 square foot of floor. So we're looking at
That's correct, because the acre, there's only about an acre of space, and they do need to fit in parking and open space. So, we wouldn't be talking about 40,000 square feet of retail on the first floor.
Right. Okay. So, and hopefully that's someone said they had a hard time hearing. Maybe you can hear me now. We're talking about 12,000 square feet of 12 to 15 maybe thousand square feet of space on the second floor. And I think for a building that small, I'm also more supporting, allowing just retail on the first floor and allowing whatever they choose for the remaining floors. But maybe it's something that we look at in the future of almost creating maybe a proffer for retail that developers could pay into for certain things, and probably not at this one, but to be able to subsidize those more mom and pop retail, because they really do need to be subsidized, almost like affordable housing in some sense for specific areas, but creating and maybe talking to the board of creating a fund for that somehow. Yeah, in this case, I don't think, the 12,000 square feet, is that big of a deal compared to the commercial space that's around there that could be utilized for those types of businesses. And in terms of financing it, a bank looks at commercial space almost as, they want to make sure actually the rest of the building will cover the note with leaving the commercial space off almost, unless you have a tenant built to suit that's already in there or a credit tenant. But if it's, speculative commercial, the bank's going to want to see that the building can operate on its own with those commercials actually probably at 100% vacancies, with how they're going to probably look at it on pro forma, or at the least maybe, 70%. So for this size building, I agree to maybe in the future a way to create a fund to subsidize retail, and I think that would make it easier to have more on maybe the second floor as well as first floor. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Evan. Other comments? Mary, your hand is raised. Is that from before?
That's a new one. I want to speak.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I'm concerned because I know the recent EDA report on the market report noted that a lot of the mom and pop and retail and commercial office, service offices along the corridor would be destroyed, really, and that there wouldn't be places in new development that they would be able to go for the same rent. And also mentioned the idea of some kind of subsidy or break for local offices or retail. And I'm also wondering if this is not economical for this particular building. Does that mean it's not economical for any of the other buildings in Huntington? Is this something we're going to hear every time we look at one of the buildings, that they only want to do residential, which is really not the goal of especially the metro area. It's got to be a mixed use, not just residential. We're done with being a bedroom community. So I guess the questions I have to the developer is, did you really do a study into the future, into the time that you would be finishing this building on local commercial, not renting it all out to one person, but renting it out to dentists and chiropractors and whatnot? I really find that was just a no-go. I mean, there's a lot of those kind of people around here, especially with all the offices that are going to be knocked down along Route 1.
Would you like
also to the Planning Commission, is this the same thing we're going to hear from all the developers, that they can't do any local commercial?
Would you like for us to respond to that?
Sure.
Is that okay? And I think that I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bannister, but I will say that he has a lot of experience in this because he has his own office in the building next door for I think at least about 7 years now. So I know that he can speak to what he's seen in that time and also what he thinks will happen in that time. And I do want to say that he has said to me that he is fine with first floor retail and trying to ensure that that's mom and pop retail, and is willing, he knows he'll have to subsidize that in some way. But Mr. Bannister, would you like to address the issue of what you think both today and in the future about the office types uses that we've been discussing?
Sure. This is Steve Bannister. Hi, Mary. The second floor use, those 3 words, and second floors in the text, is what we want to remove. And the reason is because retail is very quirky, and retail does like very traditional walk-in first floor space. And the more mom and pop it is, in my opinion, the more important that becomes, and the need for it to be more affordable. The second floor retail, we've seen some success with second floor retail, as Megan alluded to, but it's predominantly been in locations with destination retail, Wegmans. It's something substantial. And there, I think it can work. When you mix it with a residential building, I think it's extremely problematic. And one of the things that was discussed was the code. We have to build a commercial code if we make it available as commercial space, and that's an entirely different design. And yeah, we can do it, but there's a pretty big expense to that. And I'm very worried about, that space being very difficult to lease. Elevators and stairs are not the same as a walk-in entrance. So that's the reason we've been resisting that. We certainly think we'll get mom and pops on the first floor. We are going to have to subsidize. Retail has not taken hold yet at Huntington. We need more rooftops. And the reason that we continue to the ability to move forward with maybe less commercial than staff would like, because we really want to be part of the solution instead of a continuation of that problem. I hope that helps you understand my perspective.
The planning people, is this something we're going to hear from all the builders?
This is Megan. I do think it is going to be part of the discussion. Certainly, we're already seeing some backtracking and rolling back on commercial and nearby development proposals. So I do think that would be a challenge. But as far as, the nuances of the debate, first, second versus second floor, that might be hard to predict. But I do think we are certainly in agreement that the first floor is critical. This is right by a transit station, and we are trying to make this a self-sufficient community, and for people to realistically live without a car. That's what we want in this area. And in order to do that, we need to have a critical mass of, I would say, commercial spaces, and as well as, and so not just retail, but really looking at that service use as well, to make it so that we're not just talking about, little commercial retail stores, but also things that, other needs that people may have, whether it's doctors or physical therapists or something else. But yes, to answer your question, I do think that this will be part of the discussion going on into the future in some form.
Thanks, Megan. David, you have your hands raised, sir?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chairman Clark. I mean, I think the goal of the task force is to provide the flexibility to get these kinds of developments done and not to be too prescriptive here, because we don't really know what the future looks like. We can't predict it. And what's more is, it's really up to the developer. I mean, the developer seems to me is in the best position to understand what the market's going to be, and it probably has the best sense and probably the best tools for determining that. But I would say that there is another concept. It's these live-work, the live-work concept. They're known as e-lofts, which, they do give you flexibility between working and in a residential space. They also may be very popular coming out of COVID, where people have had a whole year of living and working in one space. And I'm just wondering if that kind of concept, if you've looked at that for the second floor, if that's something that might be feasible, that could actually, could actually work out in this kind of building.
I don't know if you want to address that, Steve, but my understanding is that if it is a live work and it does have a commercial component, there still are certain building code requirements that make this not very feasible for, a single floor in a 12,000 square feet. So I don't think that that's really going to be a feasible option for us.
That is a trend that's developing, as you indicated. We just don't think Huntington is ready for that yet, and we really would like to be able to, get this financed and built now rather than in the future. But I do think that trend is starting to evolve. We're seeing it in certain parts of Alexandria and Arlington. They're a little more urban locations. It certainly seems to be developing, but we're very concerned about any of those particular applications at this moment in Huntington.
Okay.
I need to make a motion unless there are people who want to weigh in. I don't want to, cut off anybody who wants to make a comment. So if anybody else wants to, great. If not.
Thanks, Ellen. Are there other comments from the task force or staff? Anything else before we go to a vote on this? Anything else we should know or discuss?
The only thing, I can't see the participant list, but if there are already public speakers, you might want to see if there are any on the list and see if they have any comments prior to finishing your deliberation.
Thanks, Graham. So,
Aaron's shaking his head. It looks like there's no.
There are no other attendees.
No,
thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Okay.
And I think Ellen wanted to actually make a motion, which I'm happy to second.
Let her make the motion first, Catherine.
Well,
Suppose she's had a change of heart.
nah. So then we can move on with a vote for what the task force is interested in.
Okay, so Ellen, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I move that we go forward with staff's recommendations, however, with removing in the second line of their added task and second floor, and also removing the sentence of independent living and or assistant living units are strongly encouraged. That's just not a use that will go with it. So those two things, yes, that's it exactly. So that is my motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, we all heard the motion. It's been seconded. And all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And if we can do any opposed, any extensions, any opposed? So hearing none, sound like the motion carries unanimously.
Well,
All right.
Mr. Chairman, under the summary sheet that we have, summary task force recommendation, this would be a vote in favor of the second version, which is adopt plan amendment as recommended by staff with modifications. Is that acceptable?
That is acceptable to me. And Ellen?
That's fine.
You have the text that's been edited to show that what the modifications are.
Yeah, that's perfect. I have no problem.
And what we can do is Commissioner Sargent and Clark and the rest of the task force, we can send this out, have it posted on the website so it's available. And we can also, Commissioner Sargent, to your question, you know, these, I think that second check mark or second option in the voting form is exactly what's kind of contemplated here. So, perfect.
Got it. Okay.
Well, I have a question. Do we need to have individual votes recorded for the number, or are you going to just, because I'm not sure who's on.
I can tell you who I've listed based on the attendance and the unanimous vote. I listed, I'll go through it just so everybody knows. All in favor of that motion, adopting the staff recommendations with modifications. Hillary Clausen, Catherine Ward, David Levine, Evan Kaufman, Mary Payton, Queenie Cox, Ellen Young, Lynn Pascoe, and Tracy Wood. Did I get it correctly?
So that's a total of 8?
That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh, 9. Oh, okay. I must have missed myself. Okay, thank you.
And is that 902, Tim and Walter, you're abstaining? Just
Yes, we are abstaining.
great.
Yeah.
9 to 0 to 2. Very good.
Okay. Thank you all for that. Any further comments for the group? If not, we can move to adjourn.
Wait a minute, let me ask. I'm sure, sorry, I forgot. Who do I send this form to?
Oh, you stay here.
Huh?
You would send it to Aaron, and if you would like to copy Tim and myself, that would be great.
Okay, will do.
Is that correct, Aaron?
I think we may need one of your signatures, though. Is that correct, Graham?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So if you would send it to both Tim and I, please, and then Tim and I will get it over to staff.
Got it.
But do I need, but there's no place, excuse me, there's no place for me to sign it though. Or do
No,
I
it
sign on
has to
this?
be, it has to be signed by one of the chairs.
Yeah, no, oh, well, they got the info, they can sign it then. Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
And excuse me, Walter, just before we close out, I just wanted to remind everyone, so this will be going to hearing on June 23rd before the Planning Commission. And then the board date is July 27th. So as far as next steps in the process, we will be finalizing our staff recommendation over the next few weeks, and then moving towards hearing as well.
Megan, let me ask you a quick question on that. Who will testify on behalf of the task force?
You're 2 steps ahead of us, Catherine. So we will, I guess we'll get back to the group on that.
Well, no, I'm
Unless-
assuming it's going to be, I mean, you sit on the planning commission. So my question is, Megan says, or this is going to the BOS. Is that what you said?
No, it's just coming to planning commission first.
Okay, so this is going on June 23rd to the planning commission. So Megan or Aaron or Graham or one of y'all is going to present the staff position. So my
Correct.
question is, who is going to present the task force's position?
So would you like to take a vote and we decide on that now? Is that what you're asking?
No, what I'm at, I mean, sometimes when I've seen these in the past, staff says, and oh, the task force said this. So I guess I'm more trying to clarify the process. Do we need
You're
someone
right, you're right,
off of-
Catherine. It will have to be someone else besides the chair.
Okay, good. So, and it's not going to be anybody from the staff. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
So I think
Okay.
it's Walter and Tim. They can appoint whoever they want, or you all can.
Okay, so we just need to
decide
have someone do it. That's what I was just trying to get to it. So
Yes.
we don't need to decide tonight, or do we, or what do y'all recommend?
Yeah, I'm saying we don't need to decide tonight, but if we're anxious to do that, we can. So during the nomination period, we had Mr. David Levine and Mr. Evan Kaufman gave comments and presented to the planning commission.
Just a perhaps piece of information you should be aware of, which I don't know if we did this the last time. Obviously, the planning commission hearing, depending on the number of speakers that show up to speak, could go on a while. So you should also be prepared to
Now,
be
we're
there.
very familiar, been there, done that, most of us. Thank you very much for sharing. But I'm assuming we're still going to be doing it by Zoom in June.
Yeah,
We get to herd immunity.
Yeah, really.
Right.
I think that-
we
I
don't
think
have
that's-
information. Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to serve as the presenter, or do we want to wait for that?
yes, there's someone that's anxious to do that. We're happy to clarify that tonight, identify that person, and we put that to rest.
I'd like to propose Ellen Young do it. Thank you.
Wow, Ellen.
Oh, Catherine, good grief. Well, I can do it as long as it is on Zoom. I am probably very close to needing cataract surgery on one eye, and I do not drive at night. So if it's in person, not happening.
Okay, so Ellen, we have you down for Zoom, and if we need you in person, we'll get you a driver.
There you go. I'll drive you out, Ellen.
That works.
All right, that works. Thanks, Catherine. And so our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. So no meeting next week. Anything else for the good of the group? Do we need a motion to adjourn?
I move. So move.
I second.
Moved to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.